Today I wanted to try to use a large mirror to show my face, but also to use the computer. I want to talk about strategy, how to form a strategy. This time of year in June, we've been racing for a while, and hopefully the boat handling is going better. Boat speed is coming together. So what do you do with that boat handling and boat speed? So first off, I think history is a good key word. What happened the last time you've sailed here? Can you find anyone else who will talk to you who is either a local here or some experienced sailors who've been here once or twice before and they had specific experiences? Coaches, just fast sailors who haven't sailed here before but who have a hunch or a theory. When you have these experts, it's important to think why. So if they think that you had to go to one side because of a thermal and it's a cloudy, wet day, then you probably would disregard that advice because it's not a thermal day. Keep it in the back of your mind. For example, if you have a explanation that is unscientific, it may have been that everyone who sails at this venue knows you have to go to the left, and we've just been making up reasons for that we're not sure of. So sometimes the fancy scientific explanations are not reliable. Your own history, coming back to history, what have you seen happen recently? When you wake up in the morning, is there a lot of wind and it's been slowly dying? Or when you woke up, was it dead calm and it's been slowly building? How are the gusts moving? What kinds of clouds have there been through the day? Have you been out on the course early enough to split tacks with someone? Köra kanterna in Swedish. And which paid off. It's better to have more research from several different sailors and not just a window into one moment in time. Your fallback plan, if you're unsure of the actual best strategy and if you're fast, is to stay in between the competition and the mark. Start ahead and stay ahead. It's sort of a cheeky thing to say, but if you have boat speed, you need to beat the fleet. You don't necessarily need to beat the race course. So when you see a small advantage, take a bit of the advantage, but stay between your competition and the advantage. Like if the gusts are coming from one side, just doing your thing on that side of your competition, rather than trying to win the whole race course. Whereas if you think you don't have boat speed on your competition, if you think you would slowly lose to them in a drag race, then you might need to really commit to your theory. And if it's the right theory, get enough advantage to stay ahead of them as they slowly catch up. Another big question that's not really the same as history is what kind of a day is it? So days with thermal breeze, textbook thermal breeze, say you have a straight coast and you know the direction of the gradient wind, and the gradient wind is helping the thermal cell build. There's very precise theories I won't get into here about how the thermal weather should progress through the day, and there will be a peak amount of wind at a certain part of the day, and then it'll get a bit flukier and may even come back. But you have all sorts of thermal cells. So you can have little parking lot thermals, you can have evening thermals, you can have the interior of the region heating up. Maybe there's plains there and ocean further off, and that at a certain time of day the whole region sort of the clouds evaporate and the thermal rolls through. So this is the kind of history that you'd be looking to hear about from the experts, from the locals. You can get into what quadrant is the gradient in, if it's a more traditional thermal. If you're not sure about these, you can look it up, all sorts of meteorology talks. If it is wind driven by pressure gradient, so not wind from a thermal, but wind just driven by the isobars or the pressure lines on a weather map, then those can follow a forecast a little more closely. So the small shifts will be random, but the bigger trends can be more easily forecast. What will happen can be forecast, but often the time of day that it happens is pretty approximate. So if it's a pressure gradient day, paying attention to the forecast. In contrast, thermal days, often thermals are not picked up by forecasts because they're too local. Another type of day is a day based on clouds. I say outflow clouds, as in clouds that are raining or snowing or starting to rain, and then they evaporate, but there's still cold air dropping out of them. And that's different than sort of updraft clouds, which are what happens when the cloud is forming. So those don't drop cold air from them. They receive warm, moist air coming up and condensating and making the white thing that you can see. So recognizing that there's cold air or moisture dropping from a cloud. These can be smaller clouds that sort of slightly affect the wind as they pass by, or they can be one giant cloud passing by off to the side that slowly bends the wind towards it, and then kills the wind as it passes, and then the wind flicks back to the normal direction. So if it is driven by, if the conditions are driven by outflow or precipitation clouds, then you want to pay attention to what direction the gradient wind is going. So the wind that is blowing the clouds higher up is not usually going in the exact same direction as the wind that you're sailing in. So you may look at the wrong cloud. You're expecting one cloud to come towards you, and it's actually the next one over to the side. Next question, is there an obvious geographical feature? A point of land sticking out into the race course is a big red flag, or something that you really need to pay attention to. Can you get a lift from it, especially if it's on the left? Is there a parallel coast to the race course on the left of the course, which with the Coriolis effect and convergence theoretically should create a bit more wind on the left? But is there also land on the right? Sometimes even land on the right can funnel wind, but according to the Coriolis effect, there should be divergence, so there should be less wind on the right. So if there's land parallel to the course on the right, that's a big question mark. You definitely need to test it to see if going into the land is good or bad. But on the left, that can be your default strategy. If there's nothing else obvious, try sailing towards the land on the left. If there is a cliff or a wall of buildings or a hill, these can all bend the wind in different ways depending if they're upwind of you, to the side of you, for example. And we already talked quite a bit about sea breezes, but if you know the geography, you can be more certain that thermal cell is possible or not. I also talked a little bit already about updraft and downdraft clouds and which way they're moving. Another type of clouds that are really important is fronts. So a big line of clouds showing a front coming, but that usually causes a race to be postponed or abandoned. So it's less of a tactic, but it's or less of a useful for a strategy in a race. But anything's possible. The race may keep going through the next wind direction. And so if you're expecting that gigantic change from a front to come, the big question is the timing. So you're looking for cues. Do you see the flag suddenly change direction, and you can get over there before the wind changes? Get over to what will be upwind. So yeah, looking for smokestacks, other fleets on the race course, flags, ripples on the water. I think I get into a bit more later on. So the next topic I wanted to talk about is direct wind observations. So which way is the wind trending? Is it slowly going to the right, slowly going to the left? Is it slowly building, dying? When the wind oscillates or flicks backwards and forwards, left and right, does it happen? How many of them are there in whatever, 5 minutes or 10 minutes? That'll tell you how many tacks you're probably going to need to do. If there's only one big change in a 10-minute period, then you may be treating an oscillating breeze like a persistent breeze because the wind doesn't come back before the next mark. If you have a lot of small shifts and then only a few big ones, you may need to ignore the small ones. But if there's only quick, large shifts, you may need to spend time in the middle of the course, which is usually a bad place to be. But if there's lots of big shifts, you just link them right up the middle of the race course. So if you've been out on the race course for a while, you can gain some knowledge about this just from your own research. Unfortunately, a lot of the time what you find in your research is that it is changing in a certain way and that your research will be obsolete by the end of the first race. So you kind of have to keep on researching as you're sailing the first race and then the second race each time for preparation for the next race or the next leg of the course. Another question to ask yourself is how visible is the wind on the water? I often get athletes who say, I just can't see the wind today. So it's worth guessing and then checking. So you can say, I think that's a gust, and then you sail over there, and oh no, that's just the glare of the sun on the water. So that's good to find out before the race has started. How far away can you see the wind? Sometimes you see the wind building way over in an inlet, a long way away from the course, or other times that wind never gets to you, and it's just the wind that sort of lands right in the race course. So how far do the gusts travel down the course? How fast do they travel down the course? Sometimes the gusts just never get to you. You have to sail to them. So if you have an idea of what you should be looking for, if you know that the gusts are slowly moving down the course, maybe you can even say 5 minutes from now, I expect there to be more pressure on the right because of that darkness over there. But a lot of the times it's not that reliable, predictable. Other little tricks that don't often happen, but they're definitely possible, are the direction and strength linked. So sometimes you have cold, higher level air from the right dropping down. There can be other links, but you can also have. It's possible to have timed shifts, but there's nothing in the physics to. I don't know. It's complicated, but sometimes these patterns show up. Warmer layers of air doing something Is there a credible theoretical reason for what you're claiming? So if you say that at the top left of the course there's an advantage, well, look around. What is it that could be causing this? Is there something on land that could be causing this? If you're in the middle of nowhere, it's a little bit strange that the advantage would only be on the top left. Is there a cloud that's causing it? If you can link it to some factor, then when that factor goes away, you can be a little prepared. So just try to figure out whether there's a theory that can justify your strategy. And if not, maybe you're going to want to be a little more careful about it and maybe just stay between your opponent and that theoretical shift rather than really committing to it. I have a whole bunch more on current, but we rarely sail in current venues, and when we do, it's often in very simple current venues where you just need to be careful at mark roundings and on the start line. But where I lived for quite a few years on the West Coast, we had a very complicated bottom of the complicated hydrography, and we had very complicated tidal trends. So we had a diurnal effect. So there's two sine waves on top of each other, and so some days it was they would be extra big tide, and other days the two cycles would cancel each other out. So you needed the professional model, and then you needed direct predictions. Direct measurements going out onto the race course, and you needed to know roughly what the bottom of the water was like, and then you'd build current theories just in the same way that we build about the wind. We have the wind prediction, we have theories about how water or wind should behave, and then we have our direct observations and our theories that we test out. Sometimes something works on the race course and you don't have a good explanation for it. And if it worked in the past, try it again. Why not?